Hello, welcome to Dev TV. Welcome to Discussion with an Expert. I have a special expert with me today. He's worked in very senior positions across the world in development projects, and he will introduce himself to us in a minute. My primary, what we'll be discussing is more about how he's been able to rise through the ranks of development projects or development organization, and maybe give us tips on how we can emulate his journey and become a lot more senior in development. Our expert, can you introduce yourself?
Thanks, Alabib. My name is Matthew Rupanga. I've been working in various positions on projects. Most notably, the most time I've spent on projects, at least in the last 10 years, has been working as either as a project director or as a team leader, what would be known in USAID language as a chief of party. But in most of these circumstances, I've either worn one of those two hats, but I've had three or so projects where I've had to wear both hats and be project director and team leader. So I'm looking forward to having this chat and learning as we interact.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction. So on Dev TV, what we try to do is not only talk about technical matters, but to try as hard as possible to inspire each other on the best way we can rise through the challenges of development. So I suppose my first question to you will be, as a very senior person in development, what would you say to a new entrant that wants to rise to the level that you've risen to, and what is it that that person needs to do in terms of skills, in terms of behavior, in terms of attitude, so the person can demonstrate intelligence, expertise, as you have obviously done over the years?
So one of the fundamental beliefs I believe and hold, even up to today, is that I believe that whatever we do in development is for the benefit of end recipients. And we need to understand and define who these end recipients are to us. Once we define who these end recipients and are clear who they are, you need to spend enough time sitting in front of them, talking to them, and understanding the development challenge from their perspective and co-creating solutions. And I know that we throw out a lot of words and phrases as development people, and I try to avoid that as much as possible and try to not speak in that whole encrypted language. But what I mean by co-creation is most of the times when I go and spend time, whether it be under a tree in a village in Uganda or under a tree in a village in Zimbabwe or Malawi or wherever, when you spend enough time listening to the challenges from the end recipients of the interventions that you're about to espouse as a development professional, you learn quite a lot more about the assumptions that you have made about the development challenge. You learn quite a lot more about the pathway to resolving those challenges. You learn quite a lot more about the correctness of the basket of interventions that you're coming to intervene with. And invariably, what you will notice is that you will go back to your desk and you have to revise any perceptions, preconceived notions around what that development challenge is and what the pathways to finding solutions to that development challenge is. And I had a mentor very early on in my life who used to tell me that, Matthew, as long as you are spending more than a month without going back and touching base with the people that you're meant to be working with and trying to find solutions for, whatever you are doing is politics, and you are not doing development. For you to do development, you need to make sure that you do not spend too much time away from, because the world is ever changing, the context, the type of problems, the nature of problems, the nature of solutions, the nature of interventions that you are implementing at any given time are fast evolving at any given time. So if you spend too much time away from the people that are intended to benefit from your interventions, you are losing the whole vision. So for me, the biggest thing that I would say to anybody that is working in development is you need to spend, there can never be more than enough time spent with the end recipients of the work that we do in development. The second thing that I would have to say is yeah, just hard work. Hard work goes a long way in development in many other careers as well. So that is a no brainer. You need to be willing to put in the hours and the work. The third thing that I would say is you need to have some form of passion and understanding of what you're doing, and you need to love what you're doing, because especially in a career around development, if you do not love what you're doing, there's no way you're going to have any impact in development. And fourthly, I would say you need to have a clear understanding of what you enjoy doing. Do you enjoy, and we've had this whole it's called what, the Peter principle, where I'm going to very summarize it. I'm going to, because I can't quote it word for word, but the Peter principle inherently just suggests that you are going to be promoted until you get to the point of incompetence. You're going to be promoted to your level of incompetence, and so you need to be careful that you do not fall into that basket where you end up just being promoted up to the level of your incompetence. I would rather understand and know where I thrive best. And for me, I found that I thrive best when I'm in projects, when I'm in country, and I'm working with clients, and I'm working with end recipients, and I'm working with various teams to try and implement projects that are successful and that are impactful and that can actually meaningfully change people's lives. Other people that started their careers at the levels that I have had different passions, where they have gone on and wanted to be more administrators and managers, and they've gone on to become that. I am personally a lot more passionate about being in country and finding these solutions with the teams that I get to work with, and with the end recipients of these, together with the clients who have employed us. So I think that's what I would say as the secret sauce that works for me.
So, so I summarize that. So the first is that you must have real passion for development. You must think that you want to have an impact in the job that you do in development. Second, it'd be good to have a mentor, because you can have some level of guidance into how you progress through the ranks. Thirdly, you should have an idea of where your skill set can thrive, right? So whether you're in monitoring and evaluation, or project management, or technical implementation. The fourth thing is that you really have to understand that you need to be in the field, you need to be making serious contact with the people that you're serving, and hopefully that would guide you in the way you design your implementation and probably be a bit more effective. Would that be a good summary of what you've just said?
Definitely.
Excellent.
Definitely. I would definitely agree. The only thing I would do is to change the ordering.
Okay.
What you ended up with, the fourth, is my number one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So work hard. You mentioned work hard. So I'm sure in your experience, especially you worked in so many countries, and not just in Africa and Asia. So what does that look like? What does a junior person that works hard, what does that look like? Because it's very easy to just sit behind a computer and spend 15 hours of the day. What would you define as work hard?
So for me, work hard is usually then followed by work hard and work smart. So there's got to be an understanding of, number one, what is the task that you're doing. And I've experienced different levels of people and different types of people in different geographies and in different walks in their lives. And one of the unfortunately common human thing that we do is we want to pretend to be busy, and we want to look to be busy for the benefit of everybody else. But there's no value that is being generated by our busyness. So whenever you work hard, you need to understand what is the value addition that you're bringing to all the hours that you could put 18 hours a day and be producing nothing, and somebody else could literally put 2 hours but of well concentrated, well thought out, smart thinking, and can produce the same, if not a better quality product from the person who's spending 18 hours. But imagine now if this person who's producing quality work in 2 hours was able to do it in 10 hours, how much significantly different the world would be. So for me, work hard is about understanding, make sure you take the time to understand the task that is at hand. If you do not understand it well, go to the people that have given the task out, or that have done a similar task in the past, or that might have better experience in interpreting if it's a totally new task that is an invention that has not been done before. People that are likely to interpret this new task in better semblance. And I always say that it's better to spend more time brainstorming around the solution and around the way to resolve something than throwing yourself head first into it and then spending days and days on end doing it. Whereas if you've done enough preparation and you've got decent enough understanding of the task at hand, your work hard will yield impact and will yield results almost instantaneously because you've already incorporated. One of the funny things, sorry, I'll go back to my whole experience thing. One of the funny things that I'm very passionate about, in particular about, is that I like to discuss things or tasks with teams. I've always said, even as a leader, when I have my thoughts and opinions about a way to go, and I'm passionate and I'm clear about the solution, I like to discuss it with the teams that I work with, because even at the end of the day, if the result is going to be that we're still going to implement the task that I came in with at the beginning of the discussion, the task will never be implemented the same way, because it is now benefiting from the discussion and from the inputs of the different people in the room, mm-hmm. and the things that I thought were so obvious might be highlighted to me to not be as obvious. But also, in some instances, I walk out of the room having changed totally. One of the things that I did in a previous project about how many years ago? About 10 years ago, is I wanted to do a very empowering. I'm giving this as an example. I wanted to do a very empowering project around mechanization with smallholder farmers in Zimbabwe, and my mind was resolved that we needed to work around finding solutions for them having access to tractors and having access to mechanized tillage equipment as well as planting equipment. And I was super resolved around this, and I spent a lot of time over a period of time thinking through this, and I thought this is the way to go. I walked into the room, and the first reaction was a no from my team and the team that I was working with at that time. And there's the temptation, I'm human, there was the temptation to be heartbroken and go like, how do they not get it? And when we further debated and had the discussion, what I can tell you is that the end product of that intervention, we still went ahead and did this, and it is one of the most successful things that I've ever done in my life. Up to date, I still get updates from some of these end recipients that benefited from this process. I mean, there were high repayment rates for the loans that they accessed to get the equipment. There was a significant difference in the production practices of the smallholder farmers in their catchment areas. There was all the upsides that you can think of, but also all the downsides that the team had raised around what could go wrong with this intervention. Also manifested from abuse of the equipment to accidents. We had tractors turning over whilst trying to get up a mountain because they just employed the wrong driver, and we had all sorts of. But because we had discussed it in thorough detail, we had put in place mechanisms to respond. So we were not shocked, we were not taken aback when things started to go wrong. So I would say there's a lot of benefit in planning and discussing things thoroughly before you engage on the task, and that enables you to not just work hard, but to work hard and smart.
Thank you very much. That's very illuminating. What I thought would be a really nice follow-up from that is if brainstorming and owning a solution, most people tend to marry the solution that they've come up with. Like the example you gave, you spend a lot of time developing the solution, and people really do not want to move away from that solution. What would be your for a person like that, especially a junior person that's rising through the ranks, what would you advise that person in terms of staying glued to a particular solution or to a particular idea that has been brought up by this person, or even attacking something that is a potential solution that's not yours? What sort of mindset, what sort of attitude would you suggest that a development professional that really wants to shine, what sort of attitude can that person take so they can rise to the level that you have risen to?
So the most important thing to remember is in development is always coming back to that. Remember the earlier on ordering where you put it on number 4 and I put it on number 1 is to remember the people that we are trying to reach with our development actions. All development actions are meant to be targeted with people, so they're meant to have people at the core of whatever we are doing. So whatever ideas, solutions, interventions, call them whatever you activities, inputs, whatever you want to define them and call them, whatever thing that we are doing that we call development, it needs to have people at the center of it. And if you have people at the center of it, then you realize that you are just a pathway, you're just a vehicle that is carrying that activity or intervention or idea to fruition. So if your end goal is to make sure that you're having an impact in the lives of these people at the end of the day, it makes it easier for you to listen to different ideas and different thoughts when you get into a room where what you thought was the solution is pulled down. I mean, there's all sorts of human feelings that come into the process with that. We are all human, but as soon as you center yourself and you recognize that any action that you are doing as a development practitioner is meant to be for the benefit of a specifically either socially excluded, economically excluded, or whatever grouping that you're putting these politically excluded, whatever grouping of people that you're working with, as soon as you remember that it is about them and it is not about you, that you are not the star of the show, that the star of the show is the people that you're trying to intervene to help and to design actions and activities that benefit them, then you're more willing to incorporate differing ideas that as long as you know that they're going to be, these differing ideas are going to benefit them in the best way possible. So for me, that's what I would recommend, is to always center yourself, reflect and ask yourself why you're doing what you're doing in development. If you're doing what you're doing in development purely for your career growth, you're in the wrong sector. Probably go look for a job in the private sector. If you are in development and you're doing it because you actually want to have to make a difference in the lives of others, not yours, in the lives of others, a difference that happens in your life is just a subsequent benefit of you doing stuff that is of benefit to others. If you realize that you are a development servant, you are not a civil servant, but you are a development servant and you are there to serve others, then it changes the whole complexity of how you own ideas. It changes the whole complexity of how you view your ego. It changes the whole complexity of how you view other people's ideas. It changes the whole complexity of how you view the whole basket of program interventions that you're looking at. And you tend to recognize and realize that it is about something higher and bigger than you. And that, for me, has worked wonders, and it has helped me realize that I do not need to be married to any specific idea. I need to be married to the idea of having impact in smallholder farmers, in my case, where I work a lot of times with smallholder farmers' lives.
Thank you for that. That's really useful. Unfortunately, we don't have that much time. So what would be really interesting is for you to inspire our audience. Some of us are still growing in development. Some of us are still climbing the ladders. There's also sort of internal and external politics around development. Is there any advice or pattern advice that you would give somebody that really is ambitious, bright, really wants to impact the people we serve, but obviously at the same time rise to the position where they have control of resources that would be channeled to impact the right people? What sort of advice would you give to that person?
Yeah, so there are different pathways in which you can have massive impact in development. One of the most straightforward pathway to massive impact in development is to be able to sit in rooms where policies are being made around how development is channeled. If that is your pathway, then position yourself and place yourself in that pathway where you are able to sit in rooms and you are able to debate how what defines development priorities and how our money should be channeled towards those priorities. So figure that out, understand that, embody that in, and put yourself on that pathway. And then there's another pathway which is different, which is the pathway that I've chosen for myself, which is the pathway of being in the most important room to me, in the which and it is the theme song of this whole discussion, which is to be in the pathway where you sit with the people that actually are meant to benefit from development action. I realize that there's somebody else that has thought through the priorities and has invested money, or has determined how money should be invested into reaching those priorities. I believe that for me, my most important boardroom is the boardroom under the tree in Village 10, somewhere, or wherever, where I get to interact with this. So I've channeled my energies and my focus and my growth into researching and understanding how I place myself into opportunities and positions where I find myself in that. And then the other thing that I have to say that is so obvious and underrated most of the time is grab opportunities by the horn when they come your way. So if you're going to be, sometimes in development we find ourselves faced with very difficult choices, where some of the places that we have to go to recognize our chosen paths are not the most comfortable. We work in some of the most highly sophisticated areas in the world, but we also work in some of the most remotest areas in the world. So your willingness to grab onto opportunities wherever they find themselves also makes a massive difference in terms of how you end up in the place where you need to be.
So, I mean, have you had any specific challenges as you're rising through the ranks of development, in terms of your people's perception of your competence, people's perception of your attitude, people's perception of your the level of hard work? Have you had any of those sort of challenges, and how did you overcome them?
Habib, do you have a day to talk through challenges? I've had a lot of different challenges. The two biggest challenges that I would highlight for me have had to do with race, that I'm a Black African male, and the second one has had to do with my age, that I was blessed enough to be very successful and to climb the ladder at a very young age. So by the time I was 29, I was a team leader, which was unheard of in my entire organization. I think I held on to that mantle for a good 10 plus years before anybody else could be a team leader that was younger than me. So you can imagine, when I walked into rooms, the perceptions that people had about me and about the older people that were in my team that I would walk into the room with. Combine that with race, where I had people reporting into me that were, unfortunately, by the history of mankind and where we work, were sometimes white and older and male, and we get into a room and literally people would subconsciously angle their chairs and their area of focus away from me, and in a very dismissive way to look at some of the team members that I had with me, and the whole conversation would be addressed to my fellow team leaders, team members. I mean, and which would not be a problem, but at the exclusion of me. Like, I was kicked out of the whole discussion until points where people recognized that, oh, they needed to involve me, because what their perceptions had been about the whole setup were quite different from what the reality of the setup is, especially when some of the stuff that I was working with would then need to turn back to me for direction and decision making and way forward. And there was a lot of awkwardness from people trying to reposition their chairs and try to involve me into the discussion. So I've had challenges like that. I'm just giving these ones because these ones are funny ones, but there are a lot more challenges, and some of them include security personnel at institutions that I would drive into, because I'm one person that likes to drive myself and go into meetings, and sometimes I'm with colleagues, black male colleagues, white male colleagues. I'm using male very selectively here and very carefully. It's intentional, and some of the greetings that I get at the gates included, please go drop sir at the door, and you can go and and wait for them in the car park over there. And these are some of those things, and these are funny ones, and how did I overcome them? Just by ignoring them and making fun of them and just smiling my way through it all, and going through it. So I had to have thick skin to survive quite a lot of the examples that I've given. But there are other examples that I can give where thick skin was not enough. Like, we had to have very, very direct conversations to address the challenges. Some of the examples that I can give meant that I had to walk out of rooms where it was not possible to go forward. But I'm not. We don't have enough time in this interview for us to talk through all those examples.
No, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing those examples, and thank you for sharing those experiences. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of this broadcast, and what is left for me to say is thank you for spending the time and for sharing your experiences with us. I think that last point just sobers the mood, doesn't it? Unfortunately, these challenges are still very prevalent in development. There are very competent people that are being, should we say, derailed because of some of these things. But we're here and we're supposed to be demonstrating level of competence in the work that we do, but most importantly, put the people we serve in the center of what we do. So thank you very much for watching. If you have any comment and perhaps suggestions on what sort of attitude you should have as a development professional and how you can overcome some of these really difficult challenges. Well, challenges are usually difficult, but anyway, there you go. Leave them in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.
Thanks, Habib.